Tonight we continue our series of interviews on the November ballot questions. Our guest is with a group calling for a yes vote on question 1, which would allow a second slots parlor to be licensed in Massachusetts, most likely at or adjacent to Suffolk Downs. We'd like to welcome the campaign chairman for yes to 1, Jason Osborne. Thank you very much for being with us, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
Talk about exactly what people would be voting for here, because it doesn't even explicitly say Suffolk Downs.
Right.
So what exactly is a yes vote for?
Well, the yes vote, in our words, is a vote for an increased revenue to the state of Massachusetts, $80 to $90 million additional to the state, as well as a huge investment in the local community where it would be located of upwards of $5 million plus. So the specific language actually deals with trying to focus a facility, and we like to call it an electronic gaming facility because the advances in technology, kind of slots is more of an outdated term, would be within 1,500 of a horse racing facility and comprise of 4 acres. And the reason behind that is, there's such a steeped and storied tradition of horse racing here in Massachusetts that we wanted really the focus to be, helping that industry. And so we identified, worked through some language, got it approved by the Attorney General, had more than 84,000 Massachusetts registered voters sign a petition to get it on the ballot. So I think there is definitely a need for it.
So who in the industry is backing this?
Who in which
in
industry?
The horse racing, the horse people, all those, people who work around the horses and so on. I mean, who are they exactly that are backing it?
In terms of the endorsements for this, we haven't really focused on the endorsements of different groups. We focused really on the citizens of Massachusetts that wanted it on the ballot. And the indirect benefits, or direct benefits in many cases, would help all the industries related to this.
Now, your reports in the Office of Campaign Finance says you've raised more than $400,000 for this. And I see basically 2 sources. Eugene McCarthy, who I understand has...
McCain.
McCain, I'm sorry.
Right. That's really...
McCarthy ran for president.
Exactly.
No, McCain, and he has maybe some property interests in the area. And then there's this company called, let me see here, Capital Productions LLC,
right,
which is in Delaware. Who are they?
Well, that's Eugene McCain's company that was formed to help with the development of the project. And he's a New York native, born and raised in New York, and went to school here in Massachusetts. And so he came up with the idea of trying to develop a new facility here in Massachusetts, and he's investing a lot of time and resources into this.
Well, I can understand he might have something to gain from this, but where are the horse people? Where are the labor unions, the trade unions who want jobs? I mean, I don't see any of that.
Right. I think this is a campaign that was designed from the very beginning to kind of take a look at, one, do we have the support of the citizens, first off? Going to different groups like the unions in the horse industry and all the indirect businesses that would profit from this are the second step in this. And we accomplished the first task, which is to get it on the ballot. And now we're actively going out and talking to the unions, talking to the horse racing industry. You're going to see a lot more of this campaign throughout the state.
We're talking with Jason Osborne from Yes to 1. What about the need for this? Because you're on another border of Boston, at least just over the border in Everett, we have a casino that's being built. So do we need another gambling destination that close to the city here?
I think you have to look at the Wynn property is a completely different type of property than what we're talking about. I mean, we're a limited electronic gaming facility with a hotel attached to it. And I think if you look at the hotel aspect of it, there's a huge need for hotels here in the Boston area, particularly when the Yankees come into town and you have the only hotel room you can get is $800 in the city of Boston. So there's a huge market with 17 million passengers coming in and out of Boston Logan in this year alone, which is, there were 15 million last year. So if we're trying to provide another entertainment opportunity for tourists that are coming in to Boston, as well as providing jobs to Massachusetts residents and funding for localities as well as the state.
Well, we've had an opponent talk about the consequences in terms of public safety and crime. Well, what do you know about this with facilities like this?
It's, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's like Groundhog Day. I mean, these are the arguments that people have been using against gaming for decades. And the arguments that our opponents have used on this just don't bear out. You had the Gaming Commission chairman just a couple weeks ago talk about the 0% crime increase in Plainville, where the site of Plain Ridge Park is, where you had no significant impact in a number of different categories that are usually associated with, in the past, years ago, with casinos. I mean, this is, the gaming industry itself has really kind of evolved into a true entertainment type, facility for all walks of life. I mean, and our focus really is on this facility is really to target the tourists that are coming in and out of Boston on a yearly basis and help to revitalize a community that has been decimated with the economy over the years. It just hasn't, and the reduction of the Greyhound Park leaving, the Suffolk Downs reducing the amount of races that they do a year.
You say tourists. You think people will be coming from other states or even countries for something like this?
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think first off, you have to look at who's coming in to Boston. You have a huge domestic market of tourists that are coming into Boston on a yearly basis, and providing them another opportunity to, when they go, for business travelers, they're going into the city, they're doing their business, and then they're coming out and staying at an airport hotel. We're a mile and a half, the location that we've identified is a mile and a half from the airport. So it would be a logical place for folks to stay, and it would be a nice hotel. We're not going to put in kind of a seedy hotel, and it's going to be a nice gaming facility. I mean, if you look up in Bangor, Maine, and what they've done in the little town of Bangor over the years.
No, this isn't Bangor. I mean, Boston. Does Boston really need this in order to have some kind of economic growth?
I think go back and if you go back and you look at kind of what Revere Beach historically was, where you had roller coasters and you had a vibrant beach community with a lot of restaurants and different options for people to go and take their families, and that it's not there anymore. So I think the more that you can add value and options to people, it's for the better.
I have to ask you one thing. We have had votes on casino proposals in East Boston and Revere. They turned out differently. But in those cases, people at least saw a proposal. They knew what the community benefits were. There were some traffic studies. Here, it's almost like a blank check.
Well, and I think that's unfortunate that our proposal has not gotten the attention that we would have liked in terms of what we've offered to the city of Revere. I think we've taken the approach first from the very beginning that let the voters decide if they want something like this or not. Just the concept of it. And once we identified, that the voters do in Revere would overwhelmingly want this, we have a proposal in place that calls for upwards of a 500-room hotel, plus a electronic gaming facility. We've presented the city with the Plain Ridge Park City of Plainville agreement and said this is a good starting point for a host city agreement, which guarantees $5 million in revenue to the city of Plainville in the first 6 years, and then it's tied to gaming revenue. So whether or not a facility makes $5 or $500 million, the city is guaranteed $5 million. We haven't said that that's the only thing that we would accept. In fact, we've talked to several city council members in Revere and explained that, look, we want to be part of your community. We want to hire local. We want to hire unions. We don't want Revere residents or Massachusetts residents to actually be the consumers. We want them to be the employees.
Well, first of all, that proposal is not on the ballot right now. And what about Boston? Have you talked to anybody in Boston?
No, I mean, our view is why do we need to talk to elected officials in Boston when we want to put this facility in Revere?
Which is right next to the city, though. And you're on the ballot here, so it doesn't make sense.
So it makes sense, once we go to the Gaming Commission and go through all the paperwork that's needed in order to get a gaming license. And look, we recognize we have a long way to go to get this accomplished. We recognize that that the folks in the state of Massachusetts have voted on this issue several times and have come out in the affirmative. Some communities have voted against it. The city of Revere is a place that's voted 3 times for it. We were able to get a significant number of citizens to sign a petition to get us on the ballot, not only there, but also locally in Revere. There will come a time and place where we do sit down with these individuals, and I think it is a little short-sighted for some folks to say, that the state has already addressed this. The state legislature has addressed this, but the voters themselves were never involved in the process of deciding how many different facilities could be in the state of Massachusetts. You know, and we're asking for a license for a facility that would contribute 49% of the revenue to the state, to the local aid fund. If you look at what the taxes that are being paid by Wynn and the MGM property, that's 25% to the state, and then they have to split it up amongst 12 different funds. So we're not asking for any kind of tax abatements. We're not asking for any waivers. We're in this new economy where manufacturing jobs are not coming into the state into states like they used to. You have to go and look at what industries are out there that can help propel the economy, and tourism and hospitality is certainly one of those. So we want to be a contributing part of the state's revenue base and reduce the tax. Reduce the tax burden on the individual citizens.
And finally, Jason, if people want some more information, you've got a website they can look at?
Yeah, absolutely. It's www.yes21.com. They can either spell out the word one or just the numerical one.
Thank you very much, Jason Osborne from Yes to One. And Election Day is November 8th. We'll have more news in just a moment.